So do you guys think that adults and teens should be treated the same when it comes to their sentences?
Yes.
No.
Why do you think that is?
Huh?
Why do you think that?
Because I think that when a child has, not a child, when an underage person is tried as an adult, that is an eye-opening moment for them. It encourages them to better themselves through punishment. It's just
But
an
it
eye-opening
also-
moment.
It takes away their opportunity to
It
better
takes away,
themselves
like-
and actually have the opportunity to live their life.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they're
because
talking about him
people
being
now-
in there until he was 40, and that's like
He was like
over
towards
half his life, or at
That's like
least half of his
75%
life.
of his life.
But
yeah,
but you also have to think his sentence was also nearly double that.
yes.
So he cut his sentence in half by being a good model
Well, actually,
prisoner
he
as
cut
well.
it by
Still
30
spend most of his
years.
life in prison.
Yeah.
So do you find that okay?
Yes.
What he did was not okay, but still like he didn't have the chance to improve himself. He was only 14,
You could have
and
like
he was
that and that.
clearly mentally ill, and he tried to get help, but he couldn't get help
Yes.
because nobody took him seriously.
And whenever he reached out, he got shut down. Also, guys, there are 2 more articles to show.
I don't think there's a simple answer to the question because you have to take into consideration so many things like the circumstances, the severity of the crime, his mental state, his relationship with his family, and so on. I mean, I'm just saying there's not a clear answer, like if she should be tried as an adult or not.
It does seem more like a case by case thing.
Yeah.
Here's a question: is a child an adult?
Well,
No, then
no,
it shouldn't be tried as an adult.
because their brain has not been,
Exactly.
their brain hasn't been developed, but one thing you'd also say is that, well, since Greg was plotting the murder, he was plotting it for like 4 days, so it wasn't just impulse, like he planned on killing his parents due to all these circumstances with how due to his relationship with them, his like mental illness or, yeah.
Okay, I just want to say something. Has anyone ever actually carried out one of those stupid New Year's resolutions they do? That's an impulse. Your impulse was like, hey, I'm gonna do this, but then you don't follow through. He kind of did that, but in the opposite direction. I would still call that an impulse. I would still call that an impulse.
How I perceived this is that he was so frustrated and so and had such negative feelings toward his parents that he inevitably plotted it. Yes, but in his brain, I don't think he was going to actually carry it out until he finally just ended up snapping and then just like screw it, and then went along with it. He ended up shooting his dad and then mom, and then going, crap, I guess I have to do this now. And yeah, I still think it was an impulse. I just don't think it was I just don't think he went into it blindly.
I think a big part of it too was that he told his friends that he was gonna do it, and he found a lot of his acceptance from his friends and not his parents. So he wanted
Yeah, I feel like
to
we're
not
Peer
be a
pressure.
liar to them.
Yeah.
He was closer to his thing, and then also that his parents and him, like they didn't, like neither of them. It's very clear that they did not understand each other. Like, he says later, like, oh, I realize now, like I didn't fully understand like what my parents were thinking, like what they were going through, blah blah blah. But like at the same time, they also did not understand how he was feeling. So it's just like a lot of misunderstanding.
Also, the communication between them was like it wasn't even one-sided. Because like sometimes in some instances you're gonna have like parents that have problems, but the kids are better than. But then the kid has problems with the parents. But no, it's not like the communication isn't even one-sided. The communication just doesn't exist.
I feel
And especially during this time, like, as a teenager, you go through like some pretty tough things, and a lot of teenagers will need like emotional support and like all kinds of stuff. So at that time, their parents are like really helpful, and with Greg's like parents being neglectful towards him, it just doesn't like you have a recipe for disaster.
Especially during the teenage years when the chemical reactions occurring in the brain are magnified because of the brain is trying to create new different roads to other.
I feel like it's just unfortunate circumstance because first of all, his parents, the mom came from a very, complicated family, and then his dad was proud of him, but he didn't know how to show it. So then he also grew up in the pressure of his family not getting along. So I just feel like everyone was a little broken, and that was the price for it.
His mom has like, it's very clear she has like some sort of abandonment issues because she lost her mom, dad,
Anger issues.
yeah, and like those anger issues could have come from her like being scared of
She even said like during one of it, she's like, somewhere in the article, the Greg Gosling one, it's like, it mentioned her being like, I said like probably 15 times now. I'm trying to think of it. Something about how his mother said like, you're gonna abandon me just like your sisters did.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect example of what you said.
I also think she had some issues like accepting reality because on the first page, wherever he was telling the story, he said whenever he was telling her the truth about what he was thinking, what was going through his mind, she kind of flinches and then just makes an excuse and just leaves. So I think she has a hard time accepting reality as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought about, like when she like cheated on her husband, like maybe like I said like a lot too, but her and her husband might have not communicated a lot as well because her husband was so like he didn't really know how to express his feelings, so maybe like she sought like acceptance and love through somebody else because she was scared of him leaving her.
He was even to the point where he used that as
Yeah.
maybe a problem-solving thing. He was basically blackmailing his mom into telling his dad what he saw, but I mean, in the end, not even that worked because his mom didn't seem to really care anymore.
Because like, Greg kind of had the idea like, oh, she's never gonna tell him, so like I'm just gonna get away with, like I'm gonna have all this relief forever because she's never gonna tell him I know her, like she's not gonna let it.
Hey Logan, I'm curious, what do you think about all of this lack of communication in the family?
I think that the lack of communication is what started to build up like his need to like wanting to kill his parents, and then when he had that high ground over his mom when she cheated on his dad, he was really like chill during that time, but then the minute she didn't care anymore, I think that's when like his impulses started like going up because he knew like things were gonna go back to the way they were. She was gonna start yelling at him again like all the time, going off on him. So that has to be like one of the like deciding factors on when he killed his parents.
Maybe he saw that killing his parents was the only way out, because nobody educated him enough to say that he could actually properly get help.
Well, the one thing is that about like his life in prison, about his not necessarily like prison like life. Like, it says in the article that he has several counselors and people who are willing to help him and like go like past it. So, and even in prison, like he's I don't know say healing like a lot of his issues. He's getting help. But he's in prison for something that could have been solved previously before he killed his parents by counselors. So.
And what's sad about that is his teacher, Mr. Phillips, was the one who kind of got him into sports and tried to help him. But in the end, basically he couldn't see through that mask that was put on his behavior that showed the destructive family behavior back home. And it even, at some point, he wanted to tell him so bad, but he ended up not telling him. He just said everything is fine. And that night, he ended up doing his crime. So.
I wanted to point out I found the quote I was looking for, not the one from earlier, but around closer to the end of the article, I don't know what page this is, they're not numbered. It says when they're referring to his trial, a panel of 3 psychological examiners hired by the defense unanimously argued against simple incarceration, urging instead for treatment which would deal with the traumas and deficiencies noticed in his development. But then the next one, Daniel Hampton, the county deputy prosecutor who didn't want to be interviewed, argued for a severe penalty. Greg, he stated, will eventually set an example for other juveniles. So I feel like that was horrendously unfair, especially when you have three. At least in this specific case, this should not have happened because you had 3 psychological examiners tell you, hey, you should not be doing this. He's a kid. He needs therapy and to deal with this. But the prosecutor decided, I'll make an example out of him. Which kind of worked against him because it's like, hey, look, you can go to prison and become a wonderful person. Because that's what happened with Greg. I see you laughing, Everett. What do you think about it?
Words. So I'm trying to collect my thoughts.
Yeah, you're good.
It just when you said going to prison made a better person.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that like it's ridiculous what they did to him. It's one of those arguments that's like for the greater good, even though that like it seems.
In this case, it really wasn't.
Yeah, it seems pretty obviously like on all levels morally wrong. And
I think he also had a lot of like potential like to like not only not do that crime but like after to like get better definitely because he said this is like I think almost a bit after halfway. It said I almost told him right then. Greg said if he or anyone else had just pushed me a little bit more because I was so upset and scared by what was about to happen, I just know I would have crumbled right there. So if not only before people decided to like push to see what was happening in his life and like how he was doing, he wouldn't have done it. But then it also shows that after he did it, that he still was like there was a part of him that didn't want to do it. So he's not like a total sociopath. He still like kind of cared for his parents.
yeah.
Well, you can see like later in the article he talks about like how his parents didn't deserve what he did, and he knows now like his parents didn't deserve to be murdered by him. So, I mean, it's obvious he shows like some regret.
He even says his mom was like the greatest mom around. So even if she was, going through hard things, it's clear that she tried to be a good mom, and she wasn't more right. She went to all his sport games.
He just didn't know how to handle like when he started.
Because I feel like it is how what he talks about, like when you're a teenager at that age, you just think everything is about you. But his parents were going through things too, things that he probably didn't know about. Because if you read the article, it doesn't seem like he knows much about them because of the lack of the communication. Like when he talks to his dad's brother, he finds out so many like new things about him. So it's kind of like it's just the lack of the communication. They didn't. I don't think he knew them that well, like because they weren't just spending time with him as well.
Do you guys think whatever you told his parents, like he was crying out for help in a way? Like him writing it down and saying, I'm gonna kill them. Do you think he wanted someone to like stop them?
Yeah.
Definitely, to see if they actually cared.
You guys go for it.
Okay, well, I think that if kids decide to do adult actions like kill a person or sleep with somebody or something, they should be treated as an adult as they would because they decided to take that in their own hands and commit a crime. I think it was really good that it showed him that if he did something bad, that there was always consequence, and he spent half of his life in prison, but he rehabilitated by himself and did really, really good, and I think that's why he got out early because of that, and I think that's a good thing, but I think if you're a kid, you should be tried as an adult because he decided to do adult action.
I actually agree with Brandy because if you do those things, if a child specifically does those things, they have to be disciplined to learn from it, or else they're gonna grow up thinking it's okay. But they still do deserve the rehabilitation process.
One
big problem was the prosecutor. He comes back later too, to the other
And he
two kids
ruins
at
his
the
life
end.
again.
Yeah.
I think having the same prosecutor who only put him in prison to make an example of him being the one to decide if he should stay or not is completely unfair. Like, I see why it was done, but it really should have been appealed with another judge. Well, not another judge, another prosecutor.
And I think still he deserves to go to jail.
I have something, so, with that, talking about what you just said, in other cases, like, this seems completely random, but I'm going somewhere with it, like, with, statutory rape, like, oftentimes, if it's a teenager and they consented, it's still illegal because the adult participated, but it's also the teenager's fault as well, sometimes. Oftentimes it's not, it's horrible, it's really bad. Every once in a while, it's both people's fault. Should the teenager be tried, like, if they're not tried then because they're still a child and they can't decide for themselves, why did they get to suddenly decide for themselves now?
I think, okay, I know, like, they're both serious crimes, but I think, like, in that situation, I think that, like, it could really be, like, the case would really be, like, go through the case really well. Because, but, like,
So why shouldn't they do it with the other case too?
because the people who died, they died, like, he took their lives, he killed his parents, he should deserve consequences. And then, like I said, he got out at, what, 4 years old or whatever. Like, I think he like, he really just, he, like, grew up in prison and decided, like, what I did was not good. And now, he, like, learned from that, and he's going out, he wants to do all these things, he wants to live with children, and stuff like that. I think that's it.
Yeah, my whole concern is that he's an exception. He got it in himself to do that. Almost everyone who does this and is put into juvenile prison, most of them actually succeed with that. But Greg is a very, very rare exception for those put in adult prison.
Another issue that was presented was that, well, basically he was in complete rehabilitation by the time he was 30.
And
But
that was
then-
of his own accord. Like, they didn't
Right.
force that on him like with normal children in juvenile prison.
So then the question was, would it be better for society if he would get out at age 30 when he could still create a life and future for himself, or at age 40 when his limitations are much higher?
Well, okay, so there's actually textual evidence.
Oh, nice.
It is when one of his I think counselors or so, people who work with him, I think it's from his former work supervisor, Cindy Estes, told his work with him. The kid has jumped through every hoop the state has put in front of him. She told me he deserves to come out. There's absolutely nothing to be gained by keeping him in there for the next 10 years, because by this point he has grown with his work ethic, and they pretty much eroded all of the bad tendencies out of him. So I feel like he's fit for like going going into the real world, finally being free from prison, because he already has grown out almost all of his violent tendencies, and he just deserves. And according to this supervisor, from what she's seen of him, there's nothing to be gained by keeping him in there.
I think like one thing is that his aunt like doesn't understand that because she hasn't seen him since he was 14, and she says that, and she's refusing.
And then earlier in the story, this aunt was actually granted legal guardianship of him so that he could legally tell the police and like give up his Miranda rights. And I feel like that was completely unfair. It's like, yes, she's the most distraught, she needs to have a family, but you can't put this person who is so close to the victims they should obviously be a huge part of the case, but they shouldn't have legal guardianship over this child who they are very biased against.
Yeah, and she also just might be
Like, of course,
scared of him, too.
she would still have this right to keep him in there in prison. I just don't think she should be his legal guardian. And, like, she's refusing to visit him, so she's also refusing to let herself heal and accept it.
So, I feel like this, especially with this, the Greg Ousley article, it's really like teen or kids versus like adults and the whole justice system. And like, I think a lot of people here don't think that teens should be tried as adults, even if like they kill someone. But that's like in this case, he killed like his parents who are ill, and he is taking away their lives. So like losing a bit of his to like in jail is fine, I guess, in some cases. But like if a teenager killed another teenager, he completely took away another kid's life. So should they be tried as an adult? Like, they completely took away one kid's life. How much of their should this come to?
I think age should be taken into consideration a lot because I'm not saying, I mean, most teenagers understand that a crime is a crime, but it's like for every year when you're a teenager, you learn you evolve so much more. It's like you can compare a 12-year-old to a 16-year-old. So
You can barely compare a 16-year-old to a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
pretty much. So rehabilitation process is a big thing here.
Yeah.
It really matters how the person is doing in prison to decide how you're gonna punish them in the end.
I do have a question.
Okay, that's
Maybe then,
20 minutes.
Maybe rehabilitation or counseling is not as applicable.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
they
sorry.
can speak up.
Maybe that rehabilitation and counseling isn't as readily available during this time as it is now.
Well,
Because
it's
all
also
of a
not
sudden,
very available now, but
Yeah.
like in other countries, they, instead of building new prisons,